Hello, it's Thursday. So ever since I did my 2020 recap, a bunch of you have been asking for my puff flower bunny pattern, and it's finally time. Are you ready? Let's get into it. So today I'm going to show you how to construct a bunny out of puff flowers and a few extra pieces, so ears, tail, feet. Before we get started here, this isn't really a traditional crochet project as far as I'm concerned. Basically, it's a lot more like a jigsaw puzzle, where we're going to make many, many different pieces, and then we're going to stitch them all together in a certain way that will form the shape. So just a word on the origin of this pattern. Basically, for a while there, those African flower animals were really, really popular. So you might be familiar with Heidi Bears as a designer. I am a huge fan of her work. And basically, I made the hippopotamus, and then I was wondering if the same thing could be executed using a puff flower, and it turned out that it could. Because that's not my pattern, I can't share the hippo one, but I can share the bunny version. So the first half of this tutorial is going to just be on how to make puff flowers, and then the second part of it is going to be how to stitch everything together. So, okay, so let's get into tools and materials. So the first thing you're going to need is 8-ply 100% acrylic yarn in a variety of colors. Now you can use as few as one color and just make the whole bunny in one solid color. I've picked a few different ones here today because I've already done a couple of these bunnies, and I was interested in making a more green one with maybe a few yellow and purple accents. One thing I will mention about color choices is under no circumstances should you do a red one. Don't do it. All you will get is comments about why you've created a skinned bunny, and it will be very upsetting for everyone involved. I'm just going to pop him back up to the side, but he's actually the original bunny. But we're showing this guy on camera because he upsets fewer children. So you'll need a bunch of 8-ply acrylic yarn. You are going to need your 3.5mm hook. You're going to need a needle, a pair of 15mm safety eyes, and I find that the translucenty type ones work particularly well for this kind of project. And you're going to need some stuffing. What I've done is I've just kept a bunch of like scrap yarn from other projects, and because they're puff flowers, they produce a lot of scrap yarn as well, and so you can use that, so you don't need to use completely stuffing as well. So you're going to need those things, and you're going to need a sense of determination because parts of this are going to be quite confusing. This is one of the charts I tried to draw back in the day of how the assembly goes, and I'm just going to see how we go. Yeah. Okay, so first things first, we're going to need a bunch of puff flowers. So for those of you who are somehow not familiar with what a puff flower is, it's this. It's basically a series of puff stitches around a magic circle. Now, you would have seen them surely on Pinterest and Instagram making blankets and cushions and all sorts of other things, but we've decided to take this three-dimensional. So for this bunny, you are going to need puff flowers in 5 different sizes, but I'm going to start us off with a 5-petaled one. So for my design, I'm going to be making that in my mid green. And the first thing we're going to do is make a magic circle with 5 stitches in it. So that's the center of my flower. Now the reason we're using 5 stitches in the magic circle is because I want 5 petals on my flower. So when we're doing a 6-petaled one, we'll put 6 in there. A 7-petaled one, we'll put 7 in there. So hopefully that makes some sense. So that is 5 stitches around. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just slip stitch to close that loop. Just like that. So that is the center of our flower. Now if you wanted to make one with 2 different colors, so in this one here I've got a dark green center, you would change colors at this point here. I'm just going to complete this whole one in the same color though. So next we need to complete our first puff stitch. So to do that, we chain 3. Then we yarn over, we insert our hook through the same stitch we slip stitched through, and we pull up another loop. And notice that I'm pulling it up to the height of those first 3 chains. We're going to repeat that 4 more times until we have 11 loops on the hook. So we have 3 at the moment. We're going to yarn over, insert and pull up another loop. It brings us to 5. That'll be 9. And that should be 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we did it. All right, so then we yarn over a final time and we pull it through all of the loops on the hook. Just like that. And then we are going to chain, oh. All right, 1 second, folks. Technical difficulties. Now, if you do puff stitches or puff flowers slightly differently, honestly, just give it a go and see if it'll work with this as well, because I'm pretty sure it will. The key thing is to have the right number of pieces with the right number of sides. All right, and we're back. So yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on the hook, just like that. and then we are going to chain twice. Notice I'm not pulling those chains particularly tightly. And what we do is we then slip stitch into the next stitch on our magic circle. Just like that. And we are going to repeat that in each of the stitches around until we have 5 petals. So that's our final stitch there, and now to finish off I'm just going to slip stitch back through where our first petal was formed. Just like that, and then I'm going to finish off. There we go. So that's the stitching for our puff flower, but you'll notice that the good puffiness is happening on the back. So what we do is we actually grab the 2 side chains on each petal and we pop out those petals to face the front, and you'll know which side the front is because it'll have this very nice looking little ring in the middle. Whereas like the back side, you'll notice that it's a little bit messier inside. We pop each of those petals out. Just like that. And then we've got these 2 ends to deal with. And what I like to do is I give that center one another little tug just to close off that center point nicely. And then I take the 2 ends and I tie them in just a real basic double knot, just like that. And then I trim them off at about 1 centimeter, which is about 1/2 inch. Just like that. So that is our 5-petaled puff flower. And I will add those to my stuffing pile. So there is our finished puff flower. So this one has 5 petals. Now, as mentioned, we are going to need them in a couple of sizes. So we will need them with 5 petals, and we're going to need 19 at that size. We are going to need them with 6 petals, and we're going to need 9 at that size. We're going to need them with 7 petals, and we're going to need 2 of those. And we are going to need 8 petals, and we're also going to need 2 of those. So I'm basically just going to chill out and make the rest of these now. Okay, so there is our 7-petaled flower, and you'll note that one of them sort of wants to flip you off a little bit, and that is completely normal, and you'll find that the 8 is even more melodramatic about basically just existing. So if yours looks kind of curly-whirly, perfect. Okay, so there are all of our puff flowers. So we have our 5s, our 6s, our 7s, and our 8s. So now we actually just need a 3, and we use that 3 for the tip of the nose here. So these are the 3 petals, and it's made just a little bit differently. So I'm going to start with my main colour. I'm going to create a magic ring. But this is where things are going to get a little bit different. So rather than doing single crochet to form sort of a basis or a center for the flower, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to immediately go into a puff stitch. So I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to do a puff stitch just the same as I was doing all of the other petals, just straight into the magic circle. It's 11 over the loop. Notice that I'm holding the loop to try and keep those sort of yarn overs in the same basic location. Pull through and then chain 2, just as we were doing before. I'm then going to slip stitch through the magic circle and do another one just like that. So and slip stitch into the magic ring again. Notice that I haven't pulled it tight yet. So at this point, I'm actually going to finish off with that original colour. Just like that. So we've got just 2 little petals and our ring. And I'm then going to use our nose colour, which I have just a little bit of pink here for a little nose. And what I'm going to do is making sure that I start over the top of all 3 strands. So I've got the strand that we're going to pull to tighten the magic ring, I've got the loop of the ring itself, and then I've just got the tail left over from when I created the first 2 pieces. I'm going to slip stitch over the top of all 3 of those to attach my new colour. I'm just going to stitch over the top of the tail of the pink as well, and I am going to do one final puff stitch. And a slip stitch to finish the petal. So I'm going to finish that off now. And we're going to find the tail from the magic ring, and we're going to just pull that to close that in a circle. We're going to pull it really, really tightly. Then just like with any of the other flowers, I'm going to puff out each of the individual petals and clean up all the tails. So there is our 3. So we have our upper lip and our nose. So there are another couple of specialty pieces we have to make for our bun bun. So the first is we need to make 2 ears. So the ears are worked kind of similar to the way we were doing the Easter bunny a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to start with one colour and make one full piece, and then we'll start with our second colour and basically join them together as we go. Right, so for the inner ear, I'm actually going to use some more of the pink, I think. Pink, I think. All right, so what we're going to do is chain 11. Just like that. And then starting in the second chain from hook, I'm going to do 9 single crochet down the side. So you'll see that we should have 1 chain remaining at the end. So in that chain, I'm going to put 3 single crochet, and I'm going to basically work it around so that by the time I'm finished, I'm ready to work up the other side. So we'll put 1 in this way, and basically turn it, and I'll put 1 in as though it's the end of the piece, and then turn it again, and I'll put 1 in as though it was the first in the next row. You'll see that by working those 3 stitches, I've turned my piece completely, and I'm going to work 9 single crochet back up the other side, just like that. And then I'm going to finish that off. That is our inner ear done. Bunnies have 2 ears, so I'm going to need 2 of those. And if yours is a little weirdly wonky like this one is, just give it a little tug, it settles the stitches into place. All right, so now grabbing our outer ear colour, which for me is this grassy green. I'm basically going to make the exact same piece just without finishing off. So starting with the chaining of 11 and then working 9 up one side, 3 single crochet at the end, and then 9 down the other. Right, so I've worked up the matching green piece. So now what we're going to do is we're going to line up our inner ear with our outer ear piece so that the ending point of the inner ear is matching up where that stitch currently is. And then we are going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn and basically just put a single crochet in each of the stitches around. So that'll be 9 up the side through both layers, making sure I pick up all 4 loops on my hook, then 3 around the edge, and then 9 down the other side. So that's the end of that row there. So you'll see we've got a sort of a very clearly defined front side and back side. So at the end of that row, we are just going to chain 1 again. And now we're just going to work around in the front loops, another row of single crochet. So it's 20 stitches around the curve. and working in the front loops only. Just like that. So this is a bit of a weird looking shape at the moment. So now just to finish off, what we do is we insert our hook through the first stitch in that row, both loops, just like that. And I'm going to slip stitch those 2 points together and then finish off. So what that does is just give us this nice little crossover for the base of our ear. And then I'm just going to hide this tail in between the layers of the ear there, just like that. So there is our first ear, and now we just need another one like it. There are our 2 little ears. Okay, so I'll pop those to one side now as well, and now we just need the back feet. So I actually already went ahead and made one of the back feet just so that I could show you what it looks like. So you'll see that it has sort of these 3 toes at the end, and then we have sort of a long oblong type shape. This bit is double layered, and then this bit here is single layered. So I'm making mine in 2 colors, a darker green and a lighter green. Once again, you can make it all in one color if that is what you prefer. So to start off with, I'm going to pull up a magic ring because we're going to start at the toes. Okay, so for the foot, we're going to start similar to the way we started the nose piece. And that is just with a magic ring. And we're going to be working some fancier stitches directly into the ring itself. So for the feet, those fancy stitches take the form of a double crochet 5 together. I know, we just sort of went from like walking straight to trying to fly an aircraft, but bear with me here. So a double crochet 5 together is a lot easier than it sounds. So we're going to start yarning over like we would for a double crochet. We're going to insert our hook through our magic ring, yarn over again and pull up a loop. So we should have 3 loops on our hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, leaving me halfway through that double crochet. So if I was just doing a regular double crochet, at this point what I would do is I would yarn over again and pull through the remaining 2 loops. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over and basically go to the halfway point of a second double crochet. So you see I've got the start of 1 and the start of a 2 in there, and I've got 3 loops on my hook. And I'm going to do that until I have 5 double crochet sort of stumps half started on my magic circle. So yarn over, insert through magic ring, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through first 2 loops, 4 loops on the hook, 5 loops on the hook, but only 4 stumps still, so we still need 1 more. So there we go. I have 6 loops on my hook. And to finish off this stitch, I'm going to yarn over a final time and pull through all 6 loops, just like that. And then I'm going to chain 1 to sort of cap it off. I'm going to do that whole process twice more. Basically, it's 1 for each of the toes. There we go. So that is our second one done, and now 1 more. So there we go, so there are our 3 toes. So now just to finish off the rest of the magic ring, I'm going to put 3 single crochet, just like that. We're going to grab our magic ring tail and pull that really tightly. There we go, so that is the start of our foot. So for the next row around, I'll be doing 9 single crochet. Okay, so that is the toe bit at the end of our foot. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work 4 rows of 9 single crochet around just to block out the rest of the foot. You'll note that I've changed colour at this point. That is entirely up to you if you want to do that as well. right, so we're nearly done with the foot now. So for the next row, I'm actually going to insert my hook through both layers, and I'm going to work 4 single crochet across, basically sealing it shut. Note that I didn't stuff it or anything. We want this to be a very, very flat piece. 3 and 4, just like that. I'm then going to chain 1 and turn. I'm going to work 2 decreases back across. We're going to chain 1 and turn again, and I'm going to work 1 decrease, and then I'm going to finish off. There are my feet. Okay, so the final piece we're going to need is the tail piece. So rather than the sort of puff stitch tail that I've used for this bunny here, I've decided to make a pom-pom for my little hedge bunny. So what I did is I just created a very, very basic, scraggly looking pom-pom, so please don't judge me too harshly. I'm a little out of practice with them. Just needs a little bit more of a haircut. So a fairly basic little pom-pom, and then you'll also actually need a base to help attach it, and for that you just make 1 more 6-petaled flower, and we will attach the tail to that piece once it's actually on the bunny itself. But that is all of our pieces. So this is kind of the end of part 1, and we will be heading into part 2, which is the assembly of the bunny. So as much as possible, I'm going to encourage you to stay really organized throughout this process. And for me, that's meaning I'm going to sort my pieces, not just into the number of petals they have, but also into their colors. And also because that's kind of fun. Okay, so for the rest of this, you're not going to need your hook. We are going to literally sew these pieces together and turn them into our bunny. So something you should know about the construction is that if you look here, you can actually see all the little stitches that we use to join the Franken bunny together. And so make sure that you choose a color that either matches nicely or will blend in. Basically, we're going to be able to see the color that we use. Okay, so the way we're going to approach this construction, we'll do the first couple of rows around really, really slowly and carefully so that I know that I'm telling you everything you need to know. So we're going to start with this piece here, which is an 8 piece. So this is my base piece. What you need to know when sewing 2 flowers together is that from the top of one petal to the top of another petal, that is a side. This bit here, so this will attach hypothetically, right? It doesn't really, actually do this, to that. So tips of the petals form the corners of the shapes. So we're going to start with an 8 piece, and then surrounding that 8 piece, we need 4 5s and 2 6s. So but wait, I hear you ask. The 8 has 8 sides, and you've only pulled out 6 flowers. Well, that is because the 6s attach on 2 sides. All right, so I'm going to just start very, very carefully. So these are all nice side up at the moment, so I'm going to flip them all upside down so I don't get confused. That is what the backs of my puff flowers look like. So I'm going to start with one of my 5s. And at this point, it doesn't really matter where you attach the bits. So as I mentioned, the sides start at the tip of each petal. So I'm going to insert my yarn that I'm sewing with through the tip of one of the petals. And I'm just going to stitch through it to lock it in place. Now I'm going to line it up with one of the sides on my 8. So I'm going to go from this petal to this petal, and I'm going to sew this petal to this petal, like this. And we're sewing basically through those chain loops that sort of started and finished each puff stitch. And I am following the curve of the petals down and back up again. there is our first side joined together, and that's it from the front. So give it a little tug, you can see that there is no sort of gaps showing up. So that is your first piece attached. So just to pop this down to help you get the lay of the land, the next ones I'm going to do is I'm going to attach each of these 3 5 pieces to the next 3 sides along. So it's the second one. So that's the third one. And then we've got one more to sew on. Sometimes it can help to hold them like this as well. So that's those 4 attached, and now we should have 1, 2, 3, and 4 sides of our 8 piece remaining. So do stop and check that you haven't accidentally gone over the edge. I cannot count how many times in creating the original one of these bunnies that I'd accidentally sewn too far and completely removed one of the edges entirely. So what we do with the 6s now is we're going to start just like we did with attaching a 5, with one edge matching to one edge, and I'm just going to sew that on really quick. So that's the first side sewn on, and now what we're actually going to do is we're going to continue around and do the next, so the next side of the same 6 piece, we're going to sew to the next little side of the 8 piece as well. So we're just going to keep continuing for one more side. Isn't geometry fun? This all works just because rounded shapes can be broken down into smaller tessellating shapes, and I just think that's really, really cool. Okay, so that's 1 and 2 sides of our 6 piece. Might need to like pop that out a little bit so it will no longer be sitting flat. We are now no longer working on a flat piece, it's 3-dimensional because we've added a little corner in. So then on the last 2 sides of this 8 piece, we're going to attach our next 6 piece. So against 2 sides, we're going to sew first 1 and then down. Just like that. So this is what we have so far. So we have 6, 6, 5, 5, 5, 5, and 8. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is working with just the pieces we've already attached. We are going to see how there's like these openings between each of those pieces. We're going to go around and we're going to stitch each of the pieces to the one next to it, just going up one side on each of them. Now, if you're particularly lazy like me and you don't like to like stop and like cut bits off and reattach, you can just thread your needle across the backs of the pieces. Just like that, just make sure that that doesn't get pulled too tight and warp anything. So I'm going to stitch this piece from the outside and we're going to go down this edge. So this is what that looks like now that we've sewn up those edges. So this is the exact same piece, it's just we've sewn along the base and up the sides of each piece. And it means that along the top, we should have 2 sides free for each of the pieces attached. Now that is the bottom part of your bunny. So that is actually, those are the 2 6s, and then these are the 5s. Okay, so for the next row, you're going to need an 8, and that should be the only 8 you have left. You're going to need a 6, then a 5. You're going to need the backing piece for your tail, which is a 6 piece, and I'm just going to mark which one that is now so that I can more easily identify that later. That's all, just a little marker. You're then going to need another 5 and another 6. So that's what's going to make up the next row. So we'll start by placing our 8 piece, and it joins along 2 sides. It joins along this side here on the 6 and this side here on the 6. So between our 2 6s, we're going to attach our 8. Okay, so we've just sewn that 8 on between the 2 6s. So rotating this way, we're going to put a 6 in this bit here. So this is our 6 that we've grabbed out. And once again, we are going to attach it along 2 sides. So one side against the 6 in the first row and one side against a 5 from the first row. And you'll note that I've swapped to stitching from the outside. I actually find it a lot easier to see what goes where from the outside. If you are feeling particularly brave, you can stitch it on from the inside. I just think this way is a lot easier. Okay, so then rotating around and looking at the 2 5s from the first row, we are going to be attaching a 5 between them. And I'm choosing to insert my first sort of accent flower one here, just because I think it'll be cute. So So there's the 5 attached. So rotating once again, so now we are on the exact opposite side from where we started and attached that 8 piece in this round. So we've got the 8 piece we just attached, the 2 6s we attached it to, the 8 piece forming the base, and then the 2 5s at the back. And between those 2 5s, we're going to be attaching our tail piece. Also, just like all the other pieces we've been doing in this round, we'll be attaching it along 2 sides. Okay, so the next one around is another 5, again attaching on 2 sides. And then we're around to the last space remaining in this sort of layer that we're adding, and that is where we put our final 6, and we're going to be attaching that again just on those final 2 remaining sides from the previous round. Okay, so you can see there we've got the 6 pieces we've just attached to our main base piece. And what we're going to do is, just like with the previous round, we are going to go around and we're going to sew the edges between these pieces together, paying careful attention, particularly when it comes to this 8 piece. You might need to stretch it out to see that this is the side, not this. So those 2 sides go together, and we're going to do that for all 6 pieces around, just to form the lower half of our bunny. So that's where we're up to so far. Right, so this is where we're up to so far. You'll notice that the front part will start bowing out slightly with that 8 piece that we attached. And this piece here is the piece where our tail will go. So those are sort of 2 landmarks to help you identify where the rest of the pieces are going to be attached next. So I'm actually going to pop that to one side, and the next thing I'm going to assemble are these 2 little pawsies. So basically we create those and then we'll be attaching them on in the little opening between the 8 and the rest of the body. For each of those paws, you'll need 2 5-sided pieces. And how these paws work is they're each made out of 2 5 pieces. And what we do is we're actually going to put them back to back, and we're going to join them along 3 of their sides to create a little pocket. All right, so there we go. So you can see that I've stitched along 3 sides, and that has left an opening with 2 sides on each of the remaining pieces, so 4 in total. And pop that to one side, and I'm going to do the same thing to these 2 pieces here. And there is the second limb. So you'll see that, again, it's just been joined along 3 of those edges, leaving 4 sides unattached to anything. Okay, so for the next round, you're going to need both of your arms You're going to need both of your 7 pieces, and you're going to need 2 6 pieces. Okay, so the next round that we attach is going to be a little bit trickier than previous ones. So you have your 8 piece, and then on one side of that you have a 6 piece. So you're going to take one of your 6 pieces, and we're going to attach it first up between that 6 and that 8, so along 2 of those edges. And we're going to attach it to both the 6 and the 8 along 2 edges. So the next piece we're going to attach is one of the paws. And so what I'm actually going to do with my yarn, if you'll note that we're in sort of in the middle of these 2 sides here, I'm going to move my yarn to the top corner there. So now I'm at the top of the top point of that 6 that we just attached. And I'm going to take my paw here and lining it up so I have one side from one of the pieces that we attached and one side from the other piece that we attached. I'm going to line it up first with the 6 piece, and we'll sew along that edge, and then I'm going to turn it and we'll be sewing this piece along that 8 side, so it will attach in there like that. So as you can see, that's the first point we've had so far. We've had 4 pieces intersecting. And what it does is it allows that little paw to sort of protrude out, just like that. So you should have 2 sides left along that 8 piece that we're working around. And the next one is the other paw. So keeping in mind that there will be another 6 piece attached here, we're only going to sew this paw on one side. These are the 2 pieces joined together, and I'm sewing it on along this side here. There we go, so that's as much as we're sewing on right now because we need this 8 piece to still have one side left. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move my needle once again, and I'm going to move it to one of the wide corners of that paw. So say I've moved it to sort of this top corner, because the next piece we're going to attach along this side, and then along this side as well. And that is where our other 6 piece is going to go. Okay, so this is where we're up to, having attached the 2 paws. My needle is here at the moment. So this is the 6 piece we've just attached along 3 sides and used to attach the paw. I'm going to move my needle up one side. So now I am here, and the next piece we're going to attach is one of our 7s, and we're going to attach it along this side, this side, this side, and this side. So we're going to be attaching it along 4 sides. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's our first 7-piece attached. So we've attached it along 4 sides and we have 1, 2, 3 sides remaining on it. So we're going to attach our next 7-piece, which is just another little accent piece for me. And we are going to attach it to the same 4 sides that we did the other one. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. But we are actually going to attach it to the other 7 as well. So this is the 7 we just attached. And I'm going to move my needle up one side. There we go. So this side is on the 7 that we just attached, and it's going to be one of the 5 sides that we attach for the next 7. So this funny shaped thing is where we are so far. You can tell that I'm using a smaller hook than what I used for the bigger ones. Okay, so this yellow one is in the same point as this blue one. So we are about 2/3 of the way through our bunny. So each of our 7s should have 2 spare sides left on them. Then each of our 6s should also have 2. So the 2 5-pieces that make up each paw should have 1 side spare each. And note that we are not attaching these together. They are open in the front there. Then we have, again, 2 spare on that side as well. So that's what your current piece should look like. Right, so the next round we're going to attach consists of 4 5-petaled pieces. Okay, so the first one we're going to attach is going to be attached between the 2 7s. So there should be 1 side leading down and 1 side leading up, and we're going to attach along 2 sides one of our 5 pieces. So stitching along here and then up along that edge as well. So that's that first piece. So we're going to move around now towards the paw, and we'll be attaching another 5-piece. I am just going to move my needle again. I'm starting to narrow down the opening now, so things are going to become a little bit trickier to sort of work with. So I'm attaching this 5-piece. I'm going to be attaching it along this edge, and this edge. So that's attached to the 5 we just attached. It's attached to the last remaining space on the 7. And it's being attached to, see this 6 where we attached the paw? It's being attached to that first side that's available on that one as well. So that's that piece attached along 3 sides. We've still got 2 sides free on it. Okay, so we're moving around again, and this time what we're actually going to do is we're not introducing a new piece. We are going to fold the paw up, and that last remaining side of this outward facing piece of this paw is going to actually be lined up with this 6-sided piece as well. So we're just going to fold it up like that. We're going to sew along that edge. Just like that. So I'm just moving my needle. So the needle should now be at, so the seam down the middle of the paw, the yarn should be at that corner, because the next piece we're going to attach is 5, and it's going to be joined between those 2 paws. So you'll see we have, it's getting harder and harder and harder, I know that. So these are the 2 paws, and we should have one side here, we should have one side here, and we're about to attach 5 along both of those edges. Don't be afraid to sort of bend things around, stretch things to make sure that the right sides line up. Okay, so the next bit we're going to do is, once again, not attaching any new pieces. We have to fold this arm up as well. So we're matching that last available space on the arm with that next available space on the 6 that's attaching it to the body already. And it's going to fold just like that. And I'm going to stitch down those two, that one side. Just like that. So we have one more 5 piece to attach in this round, and it attaches to that last available space on the 6. It attaches to this last available space on that 7, and it attaches up this side of the original 5 piece that we attached. So in there, just like that. Now I'm not going to attach it along this side yet. We're going to leave that green one free just so that we have a little bit more access. Because after this we're going to go along and attach the tail and stuff it a little bit. But for now we're just going to attach this 5 piece. So there we go. So this will eventually be joined as well. So those 2 sides will join up, as will those 2 sides. But by that point, we've got such a narrow opening that it's going to be really difficult to do anything. So I'm going to leave that open for now. So the first thing I'm inclined to do is attach our tail where it belongs. Oh my goodness, that's huge. Is that cute huge or horrifying huge? Questions we must ask ourselves. I'm going to trim it down a little bit. So when I tied my pom-pom together, or even if you're just using a pre-made pom-pom, just tie a string around the middle of it and leave long tails. And I'm just going to use those to stitch it into the middle of that 6 piece. So it's the one we marked earlier with that little bit of pink. And we're just going to tie it in place. Okay, so next up what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff him. So as I mentioned before, making puff flowers always creates so much yarn trash that I saved it all up, and I'm going to use it to stuff this little guy. So I'm just going to locate where I popped all of that, as well as yarn offcuts from a variety of different projects. And I'm going to just basically use this first, and then I'll use stuffing to sort of stuff anything that's left. Okay, so first things first, you want to stuff the main bulb of the body, and you want to do it pretty firmly. I guess this just is another reason why this is the ultimate scrap buster bunny. And then just stuffing to make up the rest. So with the main bulb stuffed, you then want to be very careful to remember to stuff each of the little paws. Just like that. So that's where we're up to so far, and it is starting to take shape. That pom-pom might get trimmed down a little bit more. Yeah. So at this point you can take your needle and a bit more yarn and you can sew up that edge and that edge so that all you're left with at the top is an opening of just 4 sides. So that'll be the neck opening, and then all we have left to do is assemble the head. So we'll stitch up those two sides now. Okay, so the pieces you should have left at this point, you should have 5 5s, you should have 2 6s, and you should have your nose, your ears, and your feet. So these are the pieces you should have left at this point. So the next thing we're actually going to do is we're going to take our eyes and we're going to attach them into the pieces that they go in. So if you look at our bunny here, you'll note that the eyes are actually inserted in the middle of a 5 star. So that's going to be what we do next. So these are my 2 eye pieces, and I'm just going to insert my eyes through the middle. Now, if I'm having trouble getting them through because I've pulled that magic ring superbly tightly, I grab my hook and I just work it back through, which should cause it to loosen slightly. Now, if that's still not enough, I'm going to grab a slightly bigger hook and we're going to do the same thing and just loosen that center hole up a little bit. There we go. So that should now fit my eye nicely. There we go. And I'm going to snap both of those into place. There we go. So there are our eyes. I'm just going to quickly lay out the pieces and where they're going to go in order to make the head. All right, so we'll bring our main piece back over here, looking stunning. And so we have 4 sides to work against in this neck. So the pieces that are going to attach to that, I'll just move this up, are the 6, a 5, a 5, and a 6. Okay, so we're going to start with one of the 6s, and we are going to attach it along just one side here in the front. So this is the center front between the 2 paws. We have a 5 piece, and the one remaining side of that piece is going to be attached to this 6. So just like that, it's attached on just one side. I'm just going to fold that forwards. So then on the side here, we're going to attach one of our 5s, again, just on one side. There we go, and once again, we're just going to fold that outwards. So we're at the back now, so just directly above the tail, and we're going to attach our next 6, again, just along that one edge. So there we go, again, folding it outwards. Think Demogorgon from Stranger Things. So that leaves us with one side and 1 5 left for the row, and we're going to attach on one side. There we go. So that forms the base of our head, which if you turn it on its side, you might actually be starting to see it form a little bit. Okay, so just like we've done previously, we are going to go around now and sew up the sides that are closest to each other on this round. So that'll be those 2, those 2, those 2, and those 2. So I'm going to do that now. So that's what that looks like now. So around this opening, starting at the front, we have 3 sides free, 2 sides, 3 sides, and then 2 sides again. So that's what yours should look like as well. At this point, we're going to just take a moment and we're going to attach the tip of our nose. So the nose, so we've got our front 6 piece here, and there's 3 sides free, and we're just going to attach the nose in that middle side. So this one here. And we're going to attach one of our eyepieces next. So it should be a 5 with your eyeball snapped onto the middle of it. And we're going to attach it along this side. So 1, 2, 3. That's the first eye. So now we're going to attach the second eyepiece, and we're going to attach that along this edge of the first eyepiece, which is already attached. So we're going to attach it 1, and then we're going to attach it down the nose for 2, and then we're going to attach it 3 to the 6 that's under the chin, and we're going to attach it here as well. So we're going to attach it on 4 sides into that little opening there. Right, so it's really coming together now. We're nearly done. It's a zombie bunny. I've got my skinned bunny, and now I definitely have it. This is definitely a zombie bunny. Is it creepy or is it cute? That's kind of the game we keep playing. Anywho, so we only have one little piece left, but you might notice that this opening is just strangely disproportionate. And geez, I should go back and make this piece pink. All right, we're gonna focus, sorry. So stuff the neck section quite firmly. And you're going to want to stuff the nose as well, but you'll have to be a little bit more careful with that. And this final piece attaches in a little bit of a strange way. So we're going to attach it, first of all, along these 2 pieces, along the eye pieces. So we'll just attach it on those 2 sides first. Okay, so now you might notice that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides left and only 3 sides on our 5 piece. That is deliberate. So basically what we do is we're going to sew this piece to that piece, leaving these little triangles open, and then in each one of those we insert our ear and we stitch that in place as well. So the next thing we do is we finish stuffing and we sew the back part of this top of head piece to the back part of this neck piece. So now through those little openings you can stuff a little bit more in and just make sure that it's really, really firmly packed. Okay, so now in this first opening, so we have our ear and we've done a little crossover that goes at the base of the ear. So we know that that needs to insert in there like that. And basically what you just do is you sew this final side to the ear and you kind of close the hole around where the ear is. So So I'm just going to sew that one in place now. I might even use a couple of pins to help me position it correctly. It seems right, so I'm just going to sew it on. Now I'm just going to sew on the final ear. So there's your bunny mostly done. So now all we want to do is sew on the feet, and we just sew them with, if you'll excuse the phrase, the butthole facing downwards, because the tops of them look a little bit nicer. And we're going to sew them on either side of that original 8-piece, just there like that. And there we go. And that is how you turn 33 puff flowers into a bunny. Okay, so what do you guys reckon? Is he the Zom bunny or is he a Franken bunny? He's meant to look like a pretty flower hedge, but I'm realistic. I know what's happened here. I have eyes. Alright, so that's it for today's video. I'm hoping that you'll all have a crack at something like this. The written version of this pattern, which is more than 20 pages long at this point, though it might be edited down, will be sent out to my patrons and is also available in my store. It's full of diagrams instead of video, and if that's easier for you, that might be something you're interested in. So you can check that out. I'll leave the links in my description below. But yeah, like if you liked it, comment if you've got something to say, subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye! Who else likes watching murder shows while crocheting?